Good morning to everyone. In the IYR talk series, today I'll try to share with you some of my thoughts about how the endowments department and the temples can be the centers of stopping conversions and spread of Hinduism and protecting the Hindu Dharma in the rural areas. Recently, Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam Board, there were two decisions which came up very prominently in the newspaper. One was relating to gold plating of the temple's sanctum sanctorum, the upper side of it. And the second was about taking up of building of temples in the remote areas, Dalit Vadas, Girjan Vadas, habitations by endowments department and the collectors. Regarding the first thing about gold plating of the sanctum sanctorum, some people have asked me, since I strongly opposed gold plating of the walls of the Tirumala temple, whether this is something which is the same as that or different from that. In fact, it's totally different. The top portion of the temple was gold plated during the time of Sri Krishna Rao. And what they are now taking up is a repair and a restoration of what has faded away. So there's no new work that's being done there. Whereas what was opposed by me as IYR TTD when I was there was a new work which the then chairman Adikeshwar Naidu Garu wanted to take up, putting up gold coated plates all across the walls and then covering them up with gold plating. That of course is something that I opposed at the time, and luckily with all God's grace it didn't come through. But what's now planned is something totally different, and it doesn't really affect the heritage structure because that gold plating itself is part of heritage itself since it was done at the time of the Vijayanagara Empire. So this one aspect of about it. The second one is taking up of construction of temples in far-flung areas with the help of endowments department and collectors is a very unwise move and should not be done. And to know why it's not the right decision, a little bit of a background on this is required. Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam has a Dharma Prachara wing which has the objective of spreading Hindu Dharma and also protecting Hindu Dharma. Most of the time, it is dormant, not very active. It becomes active depending upon the EVO. Some EVOs with a lot of interest have made it very active and made the organization do a lot of things. During my tenure, I focused on one aspect. That is, my approach was, there are a lot of conversions happening in the remote areas, in the Girijan habitation, Dalit habitation. So if you are really doing a Srivari Kalyanam, the right place to do it is in these areas, not in the towns. So we made up a mobile van type of a thing with full priests and everybody. And they really went into some of the most interior areas and did the Srivari Kalyanam places like Kumalakshmipuram, Paderu, Araku and lot of other places, and the response was tremendous. And then all came, attended, took prasadam. From miles and miles they walked and came, the tribals and others. It was a great success. Then of course my successor took up a different type of a approach. He made the Managudi program where the temple was made the center for Dharma Pracharam and then to inculcate the spirit of the religion. So both are very good things, but unfortunate thing is, an initiative of one officer normally dies with that officer. This is something which is unfortunate both in the bureaucracy as well as in this TTD. Both these things should have been continued on a long-term basis because both have a very sound foundation as far as the preservation and propagation of Hindu Dharma is concerned. While these two are some flagship programs, there was another program which has come up, that came up in the year 2014-15 when I was the Chief Secretary, and its coming up has something to do with the political atmosphere. The fact that in 2014 the BJP and Telugu Desam together formed a government in Andhra Pradesh, there was an attempt to take up temple construction, training local archakas and running them in all those areas which are threatened with large-scale conversions. So, an organization was formed known as Samarasata Vedika with the exclusive purpose of taking up such temples and running them with local priests properly trained by the TTD. And some of the stalwarts like Mr. PVR Prasad was a chairman for it, and Mr. MGK Murthy, who was a officer of the Kerala cadre, another great person with tremendous devotion for the religion, was its vice chairman, and both of them and a lot of others were together, and the organization got funds from TTD to take up these temples in the Harjan Vadas, the Dalit Vadas as well as in the Girjan Vadas, and then run them also by properly training the locals as priests to propagate the Hindu Dharma in those areas. And the initiative was going very well actually. Right at that time, once Telugu Desam government decided to come out of the alliance with BJP, support to this Samarasata Vedika was also withdrawn. That's a very, very ridiculous thing to do. The TTD has an objective of Hindu Dharma, Pracharam and protection. So, this very much falls within the objectives of the TTD. So, is Hindu Dharma protection and propagation the only responsibility of BJP? It's not a responsibility of TDP, it's not a responsibility of YSRCP. What should have been an agenda independent of the political things that were happening, unfortunately has become a political issue. So, TTD stopped funding and the whole program got derailed. After this YSRCP government came, they also continued the same system of TTD for a long time, but very recently again they have taken a revised decision and started funding some of these temples which have been taken up by Samarasata Vedika. Now, this particular decision which has come as the board decision now reverses that and says we will do it through the collectors and the endowments department. I don't think it's the right decision for the following reasons. It's not just a question of, it's not a civil work of construction of temples that is involved here. It's a question of constructing them, running them, finding a local archaka, getting him properly trained, supervising his work, and make them the centers for propagation of Hindu Dharma in that area. This type of a bigger agenda, the endowment departments and collectors are not the right people to do. It will become another bureaucratic thing of just constructing the temples and leaving them there, not being taken care of. The right institutions to do this and take it to the people are organizations like the Samarasata Vedika or the ISKCON, because here what is required is a proactive approach, social outreach, going over, because for a long time Hindu community, the way it has evolved, has kept a lot of population segments not properly in an inclusive manner. So, that's a problem of the Hindu society itself which has to be outgrown, and then the social outreach has to be done. So, viewed in that aspect, this particular decision of the TTD is not the right one. My request to them is, do this in association with organizations like Samarasata Vedika, ISKCON, or somebody who has a commitment to do this. In fact, more than this, what is required for propagation of Hindu Dharma in the rural areas is to train up the Archaka as a social messenger, a social outreach person. Then only Dharma will go to all nook and corners of the village. He should be trained in such a manner that he goes to all places, gives them the tirtham, the prasadam, the vibhuti, blesses them. This is what is required to make it. Will it happen? I mean, this is an orientation that needs to be given to them. Is the endowment department or the TTD today in a position to take up this work and deliver it properly? With governments in charge, I doubt, unless the political color itself becomes, I mean, there is a government committed to Hinduism coming into power, this may not really happen. Either the government that is in power has Hinduism as a major agenda, then yes, definitely all these things will happen. Otherwise, the temples will have to come out of the control of the government. Unless any one of these two things happen, till then, taking up propagation of Hindu Dharma as an agenda of the temples and the TTD will only remain something like tying up the hands and legs and asking them to walk. Whereas the other religions have no such constraints and hence are able to really go over and do conversions by allurement, by superstition, by holding, by playing on the weaknesses of the individuals, which is a great loss to the indigenous communities themselves, because after all, the way Hinduism has grown, it's not that this particular way of praying is the only way of Hindu praying. I mean, everything that is indigenous, everything which is a worship pattern of different communities is also part of Hinduism. All those are getting lost. I think these are issues which needs to be thought over by the broader society and then agitated so that the governments also become live to it and take necessary steps to ensure that the Hindu religion doesn't really has to lose out in this competition because others have a free field to operate, whereas here all these governmental restrictions and lack of a vision constrain the spread or the protection of the Hindu Dharma. Thank you.